Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey, and welcome to my chorus. This is my usually daily email, podcast, and video that goes out to subscribers to the Kaka, which is a Substack. Today, I wanted to look at the comments from the Prime Minister and the opposition leader about joblessness amongst our youth. So you might recall on Sunday, the government announced a new policy for 18 and 19-year-old people who are unemployed, essentially taking the benefit off them and forcing them home to stay with their parents, who would then support them, as long as their parents were earning no more than $65,000. So the aim here is to get parents to pay the cost of unemployed teenagers, usually by having them at home. And this is going to mean that around 4,300 of the currently 15,000 people or so who are 18 or 19 and who are unemployed would then be either forced home or have to live somewhere else without a benefit and get a job. The idea here is to somehow force 18 and 19-year-olds, so-called off their bottoms, and out into the very many jobs that are out there. That's the view of the government. And we've had comments to that effect from the Prime Minister on last Friday, Sunday, and again last night. But of course, there's some pushback here from people saying it's not as if there's plenty of jobs out there for people to go for, particularly where people are living. And Prime Minister Christopher Luxon responded that they would just have to move to find a job, because he said there were plenty of jobs, particularly in places like Northland, in Hawke's Bay, and in Christchurch. So let's just have a look at some of those comments and look what the response was to this issue of effectively an economy which isn't generating enough jobs and enough momentum to create GDP growth. So in today's chorus for Tuesday, October the 7th, I wanted to talk about what Christopher Luxon is saying to those 18 and 19-year-olds, the 4,300, who are now going to lose their benefit, particularly for those who are have parents who are earning more than $65,000. Also, point to a very good long article from Derek Cheng. Unfortunately, it's paywalled, but it is in the New Zealand Herald. And just point to some key issues around homelessness that have cropped up in the last couple of days. Firstly, the Prime Minister defending the government's position at his post-cabinet press conference last night. His argument is to those people, just leave, get off the dole, there are jobs out there. If you want a job, you go where the jobs are. The response from Chris Hipkins was the PM is saying people need to move in order to get jobs, but what people are hearing is a signal to move out of the country. And they're currently leaving, of course, at a rate of 200 a day, about an A320 load. I call it New Zealand's A320 a day of despair. I've also included a chart in today's email newsletter showing the ratio of job seekers to jobs in various places, and in particular in Rotorua, because in Rotorua on Friday, the Prime Minister said that people needed to get off the couch, stop playing PlayStation, and go and get a job. But it turns out there are 30 people looking for each vacancy in Rotorua. And you might recall there were a lot of job applications for the IKEA store, which is opening up in December. There's about 500 jobs, new jobs going in there, but 25,000 people applied. So a ratio of well on 50 to 1. Now, the deep dive of the day that I've pointed to in today's email newsletter is a deeply reported piece from Christchurch, from RNZ, on this issue, which you might not have heard about. A bunch of homeless people living in a car park in of a church, of a charity in Christchurch. Neighbours complained. The council's been working with these homeless people and the church for quite some time, but eventually has decided to kick them out because it contravenes rules about camping in car parks. This is a real issue now, of course, that there are so many people sleeping rough. That's because they've been kicked out of motels and there aren't enough homes, and or homes that are available are just too unaffordable for people. So an awful lot of people now living in vans and cars or in tents. And what we're increasingly seeing is shopkeepers, residents looking to get those homeless people away from near them and their customers. And this is meaning a double whammy, if you like, a double negative for people who are homeless. They're now being pushed out of their car park or their tent or their doorway. And direct you to an excellent investigation from Nicholas Jones in Stuff about our diabetes crisis. And he has some exclusive numbers on the numbers of amputations that we're now seeing because of the diabetes crisis, which of course are not only awful for the people involved, which create disabilities, but of course cost an awful lot. Again, in part because there aren't enough podiatrists in the country to keep an eye on people whose feet are losing their sensation. And it's now a marker of poverty. Not enough teeth and amputations. Right, let's just have a quick look at today's newspapers. The lead in today's New Zealand Herald, well, the front page of it at least, is just a big ad from a bank for a 1-year home loan. We are a housing market with bits tacked on. That is the news today. Well, that's the headline. And to be fair, a lot of newspapers have these ads on the front pages now. But that gives you a sense of what really matters. Usually it's a Noel Leeming or a Harvey Norman ad, and of course that's very exposed to the housing cycle. There's that article in today's New Zealand Herald, a big spread deep dive from Derek Cheng. Unfortunately, it is paywalled. And in the Post today, an individual story about an unsolved death, and a scoop from Anna White about a staff survey that a government department tried to keep quiet because the results were pretty poor. We've got Christopher Luxon telling the jobless teens to move town, and a $416,000 payout for a restraint of trade clause for Adrian Orr, revealed in their annual report released yesterday. A good piece from Amy Shaw in today's press about the wine industry. For those who are looking to find out, there's a bit of a deep dive there. The press leads with a fine for the Christchurch casino of $5 million for problems with dealing with money laundering. In the ODT, very good and interesting story from Matthew Littlewood about the warnings Treasury made about going ahead with the Waikato Medical School. Of course, the Dunedin Medical School and the one in Auckland say that we didn't really need a third one, you just needed to beef up one or the other. And Matthew Littlewood's got that story there. In RNZ today, the scoop is from Farrar Hancock exposing Penny Simmons's conflicts of interest on fast track projects. News yesterday that the government has signed up 83 new contracts for companies to chase down people who aren't turning up to school. A good deep dive from the detail crew, RNZ and Newsroom, on the big power plan that lacked wattage. Someone's had some fun with the headline there. And of course, a good piece from Susan Edmonds, or one of the 7 Susan Edmonds who work for the RNZ. She's the most productive journalist in New Zealand, I have to say. How many job hunters are there for each job ad? I think they need to put some jobs out there for other Susan Edmondses. There were news on One News today. Well, actually, it's not news. It's a comment piece. For some reason, the algorithm has put that at the top for One News today, and a comment piece from Dennis Vesselbaum, who's an academic but also an adjunct to the New Zealand initiative saying, nothing to see here about the economy, move on. But I think the real story, which they should be leading with, an excellent second part of an investigation by Jess Roden in Nelson into the problems that people in the South Island are having getting not just cancer treatment, but cancer diagnosis. And of course, the horrible implication here is that people have been told they may have cancer, but we don't know because we can't get you a test. You'll have to wait for 12 months to find out. Can you imagine living with that stress, let alone finding out in 12 months and being told it's now too late to save your life? The last thing we want, and it's one of the reasons that health, along with cost of living, is the second largest item of interest for voters or voters' items of concern. A couple of scoops there, one from Paddy Gower on issues with a betting scheme that has gotten out there into the community. And another one about a problem with driver's licenses, where people are going to have to reset them because officers allegedly took cash for passes. So a corruption story there. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was today's chorus. Now, if you are watching this, it's because you're a paying subscriber. We do give it a short preview for non-paying subscribers, but the full access to this video and to the podcast is only for paying subscribers. It supports the work I do. Try to make as much free and available for all as possible, but the full video is one of those things. Ka kite anō.